Good morning, bakers. It's Tuesday morning, and I had such a big success with that no discard starter, but I know there are a lot of questions. It seems so easy, but I try and explain it when I tell you the recipe, which is 1 tablespoon of flour, 1 tablespoon of filtered water. But there are a lot of questions, and one is what size of jar. So I start out with this little tiny half-pint jar. It's a little ball jar. It was a jam jar, I think. I don't know. Somebody gave me some jam, and I've used it. I put the lid on, but I never screw it down, because the idea is that you want it to be, you want to be able to get some air into it. There's natural bacteria in the air, and that aids fermentation. The reason I think this grows faster, and this is just me supposing this, I don't know it for a fact, but I think the reason it ferments faster is because there's such a small amount of it. I mean, goes to reason that if there's only a little bit, it'll ferment faster than when there's a lot. Like when I did my 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water, it took at least 2 weeks to really get the starter going. This takes about 8 days, 7 or 8 days. And the other thing that makes this so wonderful is that it's so simple. It's not about exact quantities. You don't need to be leveling off your tablespoon or doing anything. Just scoop it in and put a tablespoon in. If it needs a little more water, add a little bit more water, but it doesn't have to be precise. That's the other thing. I start out the first day with all-purpose unbleached flour and filtered water. By about the next day, I add another. By the third day, I might give it a stir sometime during the day, once or twice. I might even feed it twice, but I usually wait until about the 4th or 5th day for that. I do switch on the 3rd or 4th day to bread flour and whole wheat flour because I want it to have more gluten. I want it to hurry it up and ferment. So when I start adding more, like I'll add 1.5 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons, maybe 1 tablespoon of bread flour, half a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons total, maybe 1 tablespoon of whole wheat and 1 tablespoon of all bread flour. If I do that, I have to add a little more water, and you're building it up. About the 4th or 5th day, I'm gonna switch to this pint-sized ball jar. And then I'm gonna start stirring it at least twice a day. I want to incorporate some air into it to get that natural bacteria going. Once again, just set the lid on top. Don't screw it on. You shouldn't be moving it around. It should be sitting in a nice, warm, cozy place. I have a proofing box, so I'm really lucky. I'm really thankful for that. But if you don't, you can put it in your oven with the light off. The light on, oven off. And then I would put a Post-it or something on the front of your oven to make sure nobody turns that oven on while it's in there. That only happened to me once, and I was able to save it because I got it out within about 10 minutes of me starting to preheat my oven. But just in case, if you have a family and somebody else might turn that oven on, then you'll definitely want to have a Post-it note or something to let everybody know that there's a starter in there and do not turn the oven on. I put a towel on my rack, and I put the jar closest on the rack, closest to the light, as close to the light as I can get it. That keeps it nice and warm and cozy. Usually I will feed starters at night before I go to bed, after I'm finished with dinner and I know nobody's going to be disturbing it, and I'll put it in the oven all night with the light on. During the day, it can be a little bit more problematic if somebody wants to cook. So find a nice, warm, cozy place. It needs warmth to grow. I have now switched. Now, one of the things I notice is that some of you like these type of containers. These are lovely, but you must take that rubber ring off. because once again, you're going to have an airtight environment, and all you need to do is just shut the lid. I wouldn't even flip it. I would just close the lid like that and leave it like that, so that you're allowing air into the jar. You need that air, you need the bacteria. I always just leave my rings for screwing on my lids. I leave those in the drawer. I put them in right away, just toss them in the drawer. I did find with my mature starter that was in the fridge, the lid got jostled one day, and I don't know if it had been, sort of half on and half on for a while, but it got jostled. And so I have to tell my husband to wait. It got jostled. My starter dried out. It had a whole layer dried across the top. So I just peeled off the dried out part, and that worked. Anyway, so I mix it in a measuring cup, and then I pour it into my container. I do that because it's much easier to mix it in the measuring cup than it is in the jar, especially the little one. So just try not to worry about exacts, and be very easy about this. You can't ruin it. Don't throw it out and start over. It doesn't matter if you forget and skip a day of feeding it. It doesn't matter. Start feeding it again the next day. I stopped feeding mine for about 2 or 3 days because I didn't feel good. And then I thought, oh, I should throw it out. Oh, I hate to throw it out. So I didn't, and I started feeding it again. And lo and behold, this little bugger was the best starter. It worked so great. It was very well fermented. So just to answer a few questions, I thought I'd let you know. Try and mix it in a measuring cup and then pour it into your jar. Makes it a little bit easier. Don't make anything airtight. Keep it in a nice, warm, cozy place, and don't get stuck on exact measurements. It doesn't matter. You're about a tablespoon of water, a tablespoon of flour, and then a little more as time goes on. Your starter will rise. Trust me. It'll ferment. It's science. It doesn't have a choice. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, and good luck with your starters.